everyone, it's Olivia. I am so excited to be coming back to you for an update video, and I have some just extraordinarily incredible news and big things to share with you all, and I'm just so excited. Let's begin with a story that I am so incredibly excited to share with you all. This story begins in November of 2019. I know that's a little while ago. In November of 2019, around that time, I truly felt in my heart that God was calling me to a new chapter and He was preparing me for something new. Did I know what that was? No. I just felt that every time I would go pray, He was preparing me for something that was new. As I entered January of 2020, I picked a word for the year that was going to represent my attitude towards the year. And the word I picked was trust. Trust God in what He has planned for me. Around that time too, He started really telling me a lot of verses about the sun. In the Bible, it talks a lot of times about the sun and how, Jesus' brightness is like the sun, or it talks about in heaven, we don't need a sun because God's brightness will be so bright. And that was a big theme that God was talking to me about during that time of the year. It was the sun and trusting Him. This is significant, I promise, to the story. Come March 1st of 2020, I was baptized. Just a quick summary if you don't know what baptism is. Baptism is a public declaration of your faith in Jesus. So it's when you publicly declare that you are a follower of Jesus and you believe in Jesus. It was amazing. A quick backstory, I did not grow up in the church. I did not really find Jesus until I was 18. I always believed in God, but I did not truly find God and have a relationship with Him until I had depression when I was 18. And I have another video talking about my depression experience that I really want to share soon. But I did not find Jesus until quite recently in some if you look at it from that perspective, because I'm only in my mid-20s. So on March 1st, I was baptized and literally changed my life. I don't know how to explain it. I really don't know how to explain it. I just knew that God was calling me to publicly declare my love for Him. I got baptized. They did the full dunking. So when I went down and I came back up, I literally cannot even explain it. I felt new. I totally felt like a new person. And I understand why the Bible says you're new when you're baptized, because I felt a new person. I came out of the water sobbing. I literally came out of the water sobbing, so overwhelmed with the love of God. Like I could physically feel the love of God and I just couldn't bear it. So I just sobbed. I would just sob so hard. And it was beautiful and it was amazing. And ever since then, I totally got a new outlook on life. I saw people different. I saw the world different. It just seemed more beautiful. I wish I could have the words to explain it. The whole world seemed more beautiful. I saw people differently. I felt more kindness to them. I just saw love everywhere. I don't know how to explain it. The world was so much beautifuler and richer, and just, God changed my life when I got baptized. I can't explain it. I went into the water. I went down and got dunked. I came back up. I was a new human being and my life changed. I just saw the world with a new set of eyes. It's so much better now. So much better. And it's crazy because He gave me a new life. And keep in mind that I'm still waiting to find out what God meant for this new chapter in my life. March 1st, I was baptized. The following Monday, March 8th, I went to a Bible study. It was my first Bible study ever that I've ever been to. And after the Bible study, I was standing in the parking lot outside where we had the Bible study, and my good friend asked if she could pray for me. And I said, yes, please. I said, God is preparing something for me. I feel confused. I don't know what it is. I just know it's big and I don't know what. And she said, of course I will pray for you. And she puts her hand on me and she prays over me. And I have no words to describe this. No words. Literally no words. This has never happened. Nothing like this has ever happened in my whole life. She put her hand on me and she prayed over me. And as she's praying over me, I clearly heard the voice of God say to me, it was loud, it was so loud, say, Olivia, go home. And in my head, he put pictures of my family. And he said, go home, Olivia, go home. And it was the answer. That was the answer. That was the new chapter he was talking about, is going home. I'm not from Florida. As many of you know, I am from Northern California. My entire family's in Northern California. I've lived in Florida for 3.5 years. It's been the best. And I always thought, every time I would go visit home when I lived in Florida, I would say, I love my family and I love where I'm from. But I would say, I ain't never coming back to California. Are you kidding me? I live at Walt Disney World. My life is great. I'm never going back because I love my life in Florida. Why would I ever go back to California? I love my family, I promise. But I'm just like, my life's good. I'm great where I am. But when God said, Olivia, go home, I felt the most peace about it. It was the right thing to do. I can't explain it except that it was the right thing to do, and he was calling me to go home, and I needed to go home. I needed to go home. I just needed to go home. That was the answer. And after she was done praying, I got in my car and I started sobbing. I just started sobbing. And I've never cried like this in my entire life. And as some of you know, I'm a crier. I cry a lot. And I have never cried like this in my entire life. I was crying so hard, I could barely catch my breath. But it was a cry of feeling peace. It was a God cry, I called it. I have never felt so much peace while crying. And I was crying so hard. I could barely catch my breath, and I'm driving, and I have glasses on too at the time, and I can't see the road. I just flat out can't see the road from how hard I'm crying, because I'm crying so hard. So I pull over into this random shopping complex. Random. And I pull up and stop right in front of a SunTrust bank. Remember, my word for this year, for 2020, was trust. And God had continuously been showing me verses about how he is our son. S-U-N. And I pull up in front of a SunTrust bank. And I go, what? And as I'm sitting here in my car, parked in my car in front of the SunTrust bank, crying so hard, I look to my right. And there are these like nubby looking trees. Like they are the most nubby trees. I have never seen these nubby trees in my entire life in Florida. Ever. When I see these trees though, they are the same trees that you see all over San Francisco, which is where my family's from. And there were San Francisco trees right next to me. I went, are you kidding me, God? And I had my Bible with me. I just randomly opened my Bible because I had my Bible there because I was at Bible study. I randomly opened my Bible to John 1 and read the first couple verses, which is, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things were made through him, and without him was not anything made that was made. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. Because he's our son and shield. Like, because Jesus is our son. And it's funny because I randomly opened to this chapter. Randomly. As I was sitting there, I kind of shifted my Bible a little bit, and a sermon note fell out. And this sermon note was all the way from June 11th, 2017, which is the exact time that I had just arrived back in Florida. And I had just started my chapter, the chapter of being in Florida. And I didn't start going to church until June of 2017. So this is right around the time I started going to church consistently in my entire life. The sermon note popped out. I didn't realize the name of the series of the sermon was called Starting Point. because that is when I started this chapter of being in Florida. And what chapter was listed on this sermon note? John chapter 1. John chapter 1 was on there. As I looked around this entire shopping complex and thought about this chapter of being in Florida, these 3.5 years of being in Florida, I heard God tell me, Olivia, I need you to look around at this complex and look at each of these stores. And as I looked around, I realized that every single one of these stores in this shopping complex represented something that God had taught me during my 3.5 years in Florida. For example, there was a restaurant in this complex. This restaurant was the restaurant that I had ordered many Uber Eats from when I was going through my health scare. For all of you who didn't know, a couple years ago, I went through a health scare where I was unexplainably weak for about 4 weeks. Doctors could never figure out what it was. It was stress related. Mind you, I don't have those weakness episodes anymore. But in this complex was the restaurant that I order Uber Eats from all the time, because when I was sick, I couldn't get out of bed. So I couldn't cook for myself. And when I saw this restaurant, I felt God say, look, Olivia, I taught you so much about your health while you were here and taking care of yourself with a mystery sickness when you were literally by yourself on the other side of the country from your family. As I looked around, there was a store that reminded me of a guy that I dated briefly. And that store reminded me about how God had taught me about romantic relationships while I was in Florida. There was another store that reminded me of one of the jobs I had while I was in Florida. And it was like, look, Olivia, I taught you a lot about your career while I was here. And there was a Publix. Publix, I know it's just a grocery store, and I know it seems so like really a Publix, but to me, every time I see a Publix, I think of when I was 16 and it was my second ever trip to Disney World, and my family and I went to some grocery store called Publix. I never heard of Publix. I'm from California, and it reminds me of that second trip I've ever had to Walt Disney World with my family, and how God was planting the seeds and writing my story back when I was 16, when I had no idea I would ever move and live and work at Disney. And yet he knew that when I was walking into a Publix at 16 years old on that trip to Disney World when I was 16. He knew that. He was writing my story then, and I had no idea. There was another restaurant in the complex that reminded me of all my times I had been in the parks, just making friends, like lifelong friends, and vlogging and taking you guys along with me, and how he was with me the entire time. And as I'm driving around this complex, every single store/restaurant showing me something that God had taught me during my 3.5 years in Florida, I pull around the corner and there's this giant neon sign that says victory. And I'm like, yes, victory. Jesus has won the victory for us when he died on the cross, and he, like, literally, I can live my life in victory. Like, I can live my life in victory. My life is blessed and good. I have the victory. And I was just sobbing. I was just absolutely sobbing. God said, Olivia, I've taught you so much while you've been here in Florida. Now it's time to go home and start a new chapter. I pulled out of that shopping complex, still sobbing. And I said, Jesus, take the wheel. And I literally heard God in my head telling me where to turn as I drove out of the complex. Turn right here, Olivia. Turn left here. Turn right here. Go straight here. It was amazing. And I ended up in the Independence neighborhood. And now, if you don't know, the Independence neighborhood is not too far off from Magic Kingdom, and it is home to professional internship housing. I did a video on that one time. When I arrived in the Independence neighborhood, I thought about how God brought me to Florida for a Disney professional internship, and how much I had come to Florida for a job. Oh, but he let me come to Florida to find him. And I pulled off to the side in the Independence neighborhood, and I looked to my right, and there was this massive, massive shadow of a cross in this open field. The shadow, I don't know where it was coming from, a pole or something like that, but the shadow of what it was a ginormous cross, took up this entire field. And I said, Jesus, take the wheel. And he told me where to turn, left, right, go straight here. After a while, I ended up at my church, the church I had been going to for a couple of years while in Florida. And I thought about how far God had taken me, how much he had said, Olivia, I know you came to Disney for a job, but Olivia, I'm so happy that you found me. I feel like he was telling me that and saying, Olivia, I have done so much in your life, and just get ready. Just get ready. There's going to be so much more coming. In September of 2020, I moved back to Northern California. Honestly, I would have never imagined in my entire life that I would be moving home. I'm sitting in California right now as I talk to you. I would have never imagined I'd be here. I would have never imagined I would have moved here, let alone during the middle of a pandemic. But God has bigger plans than any pandemic can affect, or any other, or our plans could ever change. So in September of 2020, I hopped in a car. I drove to Mississippi. I picked up my best friend, and Gloria, and you'll know her from my Disney College Program vlogs. And we drove across country. God said, Olivia, you too will not get COVID, and you too will not be a victim of crime. And we drove across that country in the best trip ever, trip of a lifetime. We did not get COVID. We were not a victim of a crime. Which is crazy because we were two young girls driving across country and during the middle of a pandemic. But God said you'd be safe. And we were. We totally were. I made a vlog about it. Get ready. I'm going to share the vlog. It's an awesome vlog of us going cross country. We did a lot of really cool stuff. And just to make sure, just because I'm in California does not mean these videos are not stopping. I still am visiting Disney World. I visited Disney World back in January, so there's a Festival of the Arts vlog coming. And I also am visiting Disney World soon. So the Disney videos are not stopping. Now you may be wondering, Olivia, are you going to move back to Florida? If I'm going to be frank, I don't know. I really don't know if he's going to call me back to Florida, when and if. I don't know. And you know what? That's okay. That's honestly totally okay. Because God is teaching me just how much my happiness does not depend on my circumstances. How happy I am, how beautiful my life is, does not depend on whether I live in Florida or California or Antarctica. It really does not matter. I just know and I trust God that whatever he has planned for me, wherever he wants me to live and at what time or for how long, it's the best plan. He knows better than I do. I'm here, I'm blessed, and I really do believe God knows what he's doing. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. If you have any questions about my story, please feel free to ask down below. And I just can't wait to see what God has in store for all of us. So thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day, and I will see you next time. See ya.